Good morning, Lifehouse. What's up? Our Chambersburg campus, our online campus. Thank you for joining us on, I got to give you a dap on this.
NXTGEN Sunday.
NXTGEN Sunday. Thank you so much. We love our next generation. So right now, what I want you to do, if you're joining us online and everyone's at home asleep, but you're up watching the service, you don't have to do this loud. But for our Chambersburg campus, I need you to show a lot of love to all of our volunteers. Hold on. Let me name all of our volunteers, all of our leaders, and all of our adults, all of our young adults, our students, all the way down to our kids. Would you please make some noise and show some love to all of our Next Gen ministry?
Let's give it up for them.
Love them, love them, love them. And then, of course, the icing on the cake is always when the kids join us on the stage, and they had a little bop in them this morning. Getting that dance down to Forrest Frank's song, Your Way is Better. Love that song. So glad that Pastor Ocoee is a big fan of Forrest Frank. Yeah. And we love this song.
Yeah, so Your Way is Better. It came out just about a year ago, middle of October of last year. But it wasn't until February that it really started to take off. Two influencers created the dance that you saw those little kids doing it. Maybe you were in the audience, you're catching along, or you're at home, you're in your bed, no shame, you're getting along to the dance just fine. So they created this dance. Right after they created it, within just a very short period of time, over 1 million other people replicated this dance. It's today, still has about 500,000 daily streams, and has hit the Billboard Hot 100 in May and has been there ever since, about 20 weeks on the Hot 100.
Big.
Very big. Just a few weeks ago, another song came out, Lemonade, fun song. Because of that song, on YouTube specifically, Forrest Frank has over 1 billion impressions and 144 million monthly audience, passing individuals like Drake.
That right there. That right there is a part about the story of this song, and songs like it from all artists and all genres. But what I love about this story, about his song, is that we get to see music. And y'all know this is close to my heart. I love music. I love serving in it. We love using it in our services. It's one of my favorite parts about what we do as a church is the music that we do. But I love to see music out in the world, not only in our church setting, that is directly praising God, glorifying a righteous lifestyle, and then it's putting up drizzy type numbers. They're exploding, and we may not know Forrest Frank. If you do, by the way, we'd love to meet him. But I doubt that any of us watching this know him. But we don't need to know him to know that he's on our side. That's our family. This is the church. And so for his music success, it's not only a success for him or for the genre of Christian hip hop or any sort of genre, it's a win for the church. So I think we got to get behind that kind of stuff and celebrate it by doing the dance. And we got to cheer him on. Basically, I'm saying all of us need to be run, Forrest, run. That's what we need to have his back. That's exactly how we need to be. And here's the best part about this song. It's catchy, it's fun. It's a vibe. Music uplifts us. That's great, right? But hit the pause for a moment on your Spotify app, listening to that song. Scroll down. Let's zoom in on his lyrics real quick, though. I don't want you to miss something. This actually kind of relates to some of the worship songs we sing in the services. We sing some songs, and when you come in, you're like, I'm going to church. I'm going, But if you pause for a moment and think about what you're singing, there's something really powerful when we're saying. So let's zoom in for a minute in his lyrics in this song. When I'm overwhelmed within, pause right there. And you can fill in the blank with whatever overwhelms you in life. And we know I guess some of the immediate villains that do this, villains like anxiety and worry and stress and fear and insecurities, right? When I'm overwhelmed within, hold on, from the weight of all my sin. You hear that line, you forget that you're actually dancing to something that's got you vibing out. The weight of all my sin. I need a friend to call my own. I need a house to call my home when I'm broken down inside and there's nowhere else to hide. Not the bar, not social media, not the club, not in the group that I'm pretending to be a part of. There's nowhere else to hide. I need a place where I feel known. Can someone help me. Take these lyrics outside of that catchy little bop, pull them out of there and read this alone. And what you would think you would be reading is someone's deep, intimate prayer with God. Take these lyrics outside of the song and just read them, and you would think that you were reading someone has disclosed details that is not supposed to be public about a conversation with them and their therapist or their counselor. That's how deep this is. And here's the thing, many of us, maybe we haven't prayed this or had this same conversation with a professional or something, but we all can relate in some way to something in that. Being overwhelmed, we can relate to the feeling of knowing the weight of our sin. And so when we go through life, we set off on the journey, we try to take a way and take a direction. We go the way that we think either feels right to us or seems right to us. Scripture says that there's a way that seems right to us, but the end leads to destruction. Basically meaning that we will all pick a way in our life for whatever reason, and it's going to take us to exactly the opposite that we thought it would take us to. There was a man in Scripture that we all know, known as Saul, and we know him as Paul because of the change in the language eventually, but Saul started off on a direction that he thought was right. It was a way that was going to give him his own praise and popularity. It was a way that was going to define his own destiny and determination. And thank God it got intervened, because a big component of that journey involved basically abolishing us. Part of his mission was to stop the beginning and the flourishing of the church, meaning we should not be here today if Saul would have had his way, if he would have completed his mission. And if we were back in his day, we would all be in his crosshairs of his sight, like until a journey on his mission leads him to an interaction with God. And on that pathway, God interrupts his path. He shines his glory and light so much that it blinds him, knocks him off of his ride, to his knees. And here we see in Acts chapter 9, this conversation that happens between him and Jesus. Take a look. Acts chapter 9, verses 5 through 6. It says, "Who are you, Lord?" Saul asked. "I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting," he replied. "Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do." This guy Saul was the Terminator. He was the Terminator of the church turned into a Titan of the church. He was essentially on God's most wanted poster, and now he's the poster boy for basically all of the New Testament. And the headline on that poster of Saul's life probably would have read something like, "God's way is better."
Yeah, absolutely. I think a really crucial element to this idea, though, even what we see in Forrest Frank's life, is that the believing that God's way is better does not mean that it's easy, does not mean that it's clear,
at all.
Does not mean that you can say, "Hey, I'm going to do this," but you're not able to accomplish it the right way or the most direct way. I have a 2-year-old son, and if I were to tell him, "Hey, go clean your room. This is the better way,"
You sound like Patrick.
He could go. He could go, and he could go into his room. He could do a few things. He could come back, "Daddy, my room's clean." And I go up there. He's not gonna say all that. I did, "Daddy, room clean," but go up there, and it might not look the most clean. And maybe in his eyes, "Oh, I did the thing," but he didn't have a full picture. Our life can be like that, where we can say, "Oh, God's way is better," but where do I start? God's way is better, but how do I get through all of this mess?
Sounds
way
nice,
is better,
right?
but what do I actually do? That's certainly how Saul was feeling, maybe in part because he was actually blind. We can read just a few verses later in Acts 9, 8 through 9. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. For 3 days he was blind and did not eat or drink anything. Even when we can't see the way, God's way is better. Even when we don't have the full picture, even when it seems impossible, it's still the better way. Even when we have to ask somebody, "Hey, come with me," it's still the better way. For Saul, he's going on this journey. He's saying, "Hey, people with me, you got to lead me." As this is happening, God's setting up a better way story. He's meeting this individual, Ananias. I almost picture Ananias, maybe like a firefighter today, where Ananias is very aware of why Saul is coming to Damascus. He's very aware of who Saul is and what Saul's about to do. And Jesus says, "Hey, you're going to go and meet Saul, and you're going to help lead him to something better. Saul is my chosen instrument. Now, Ananias now has this super dangerous task, but he knows if he does it, there's a miracle on the other side. The rescue mission, much like a firefighter going to a burning building. You can't see anything, but man, if you're successful, there's a miracle there. So Ananias says yes. He goes, even though he's unsure of the outcome. And I wonder for us, how many times do we have to trust somebody or trust something before we know the full outcome? Maybe it's a new job. Maybe it's a move. Maybe you're like new to Hagerstown or Chambersburg or wherever you are tuning online. You're new to your area and you're like, you had to trust somebody to take that step. Maybe you're a kid and you have to trust somebody. You're stepping into middle school. You're stepping into elementary school. Man, it's a hard thing. It's a big step. So you make it a step. You're not sure what to do, but sometimes the outcome is so much greater than you can ever imagine. Ananias experienced that. Saul experienced that. And another individual who experiences it is Barnabas. So Ananias meets Saul. Saul begins to just start telling everyone about Jesus. And then Barnabas, whose name literally means encourager, shows up in Saul's life and just starts speaking life into Saul. Starts telling Saul everything he can be, starts training Saul, starts developing Saul, helps Saul see the picture, see the better way story. So much so at the very end of Acts 9, Saul is actually kind of almost on trial with the other disciples and apostles we'd be familiar with. He's there and he's been telling people about Jesus and like, hey, we're not really sure if you should because we know your past. And it's Barnabas that puts his own reputation on the line to say, I trust this guy. I'm going to stand
That's huge.
with this guy. I think it's one of the biggest things ever.
Yeah, it is.
Like, you think about a time that you felt like you were the last person out, that like no one was on your side, and then one person stands up. It changes your whole life trajectory. I imagine some of you might be in church today because somebody stood up for you.
Right.
Somebody said, hey, this is where you need to be. Hey, there's more to your story than an addiction. There's more to your story than past trauma. There's more to your story than past hurt.
Amen.
I'm going to stand on your side because there's something in your life. We can see it in other people. We got to tell them too. And that's a big shift when it says, hey, I see this in you, but I'm going to speak it into you. I'm going to go out of my way to say, hey, I identify what God is doing in your life. There's a power to the words. There's power to say, I'm going to stand on trial and say, hey, this is what this person means. A few chapters later, so Barnabas and Paul end up going their separate ways. Not for anything bad. They're just doing mission. They're just doing work in two different cities. Barnabas, a couple years later, says, hey, I need to go find Saul because we're about to go do something significant. He's aware of this movement that's about to occur. So he goes out of his way and he finds Saul, and we read in Acts 11:25 what kind of happens in that moment. Then Barnabas went to Tarshish to look for Saul. And when he found him, he brought him to Antioch. For a whole year, Barnabas and Saul met with the church and taught a great number of people. The disciples were first called Christians in Antioch. Sometimes we can't see it in ourselves, but other people can see it in us. So Barnabas goes, he picks up Saul, and they spend a whole year just developing, just growing, just coming together. And it's in Antioch, they're first called Christians. It's also in Antioch where the first missions journey go on. The reason why we know about Paul is because of what happens in Antioch.
Right.
If we want to experience the better way, we have to never walk alone.
So I've been patiently waiting here. Meaning like, as you're sharing here, I know we have an assignment, but I'm kind of zoning off in my own mind, and I'm like, I'm looking at you, I'm listening to you, I'm learning from you, and I'm thinking, and then you say this point right here, that to experience the better way, you don't walk alone, you never walk alone. And I can't help but like flash back years. So I know even in our Chambersburg campus, many of you know Pastor Ocoee, and you know his family, his siblings, his parents, because their family has been in this church for a really long time. A big part of it, they all serve in some way, somewhere. And now Ocoee, he mentioned, he has a 2-year-old son, but he has 2 children. You know, his wife, Courtney, is the director at our learning center. Her whole family's involved in this church. And I see that now, and I cannot help but go back in my mind, and I see Ocoee as this young kid. hanging out with my son, you know, like in the youth ministry here, under different leadership, under a different time, different kids, even under a different name, different brand, and all that. You know, things change over time. You know, I see you guys in the back of the car. I see you at my house, you know, like hanging out with my son. And now you're leading the ministry that was a place where you stepped further into your faith, grew, became a man of God, a husband, and now you're leading the very ministry that God crafted you through. And I'm hearing you say that you got to experience a better way by never walking alone. And I'm like, I know a little of your story, a little, but not everything. But I do know that I'm excited to hear more about how that point actually affected your life to the point that you're leading the ministry that somebody had to do that in. Can you share a little of that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I first just always thankful, been thankful for, you know, since most of my life, certainly since early middle school, just like Patrick's leadership. I mean, just thankful for Patrick even just giving us the platform to speak into you.
Yes.
Him and Laura, and just how they lead their own family. It's an incredible testimony to faithfulness, to never walking alone,
never
and bringing people along. But even within students, even NXTGEN, we have NXTGEN Sunday today. Pastor Patrick and just the team here, since its inception, have been so faithful to creating an environment where young people can belong and young people can do significant things. So I know for me, you know, Pastor Spencer kind of alluded to it, but I grew up in the church. My whole family grew up in the church. But when I was in middle school, I was wrestling. What does it mean to follow Jesus? What does it mean to have this better way? It's like life isn't bad, but like, is there something better? Is it real? And I remember just really wrestling with God in this question and really believing that God actually like spoke to me in a way that was profound and clear and specific to me. And where I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'm bought in. I'm going to do it. I was like 13 at the time. And I started telling people, told my youth pastor, told campus pastor at Leidesburg, shout out Dave Johnson. He might be, some of you probably know him. And I just started telling them, I was like, hey, this is what I believe. It was cool because it started being ministry moments. You know, it's an outreach here, it's something in youth here, but it was all just like moments. And it wasn't until like the very end of high school where I realized like, oh, I'm missing the Barnabas person. I'm missing the one person that says, hey, let's do life together. Let's never walk alone. And it wasn't me seeking it out. It was me thinking, hey, this would be good, but it was somebody else finding me. Like I said earlier, you got to speak it into somebody. Somebody I didn't even know very well came up to me. We were at a bonfire. And he was like, hey, I see this in you. Here at Lifehouse, we use this term all the time. I see this in you. There's something in you. There's a ministry call in you. There's a work of God in you. They say that. And the second question I think is so significant. It says, what is the greatest need you see around you? And what is one thing you can do about it?
Say it again.
What is the greatest need you see around you? And then what is one thing you can do about it? Those two questions, I see this in you, and then those two questions resulted in like a weekly meeting for over a year, where because of that, I started ministry school. I'm up here, I transitioned from like studying dance and even turning down like full ride scholarships to do that, to say, hey, I'm gonna go all in on this. Because somebody said, I see this in you, let's identify a need, let's do something about it. You can change somebody's life when you do those things. If you wanna change the world, start with just one person.
With one. Wow.
To say, hey, I see this in you. Speak it into them. Speak it into them today. You're at church today. You probably have a child sitting next to you, a grandchild sitting next to you, a friend sitting next to you. Speak it in them today. By doing life with somebody does not mean that they know the encouragement, does not mean that they know what you see in them. Actually speak it.
Say it. Yes.
Identify one need and then one thing you can do about it. It gets hyper specific. That is what it looks like to not walk alone, because you're walking with intention. Between Paul's first encounter, that's Acts 9, he meets Jesus, Jesus shows up, his way literally collapses, he falls down, he's on the ground. Between that moment and Acts 13, that's the moment where Paul is sent out on his first of 3 missions trips, where he starts these churches and much of what we know Paul to do. There's between 10 and 12 years. So in our Bible, 4 chapters, we read it in 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
10 years, 12 years.
Wow.
there's a journey. You know, I was hanging out at Spencer's house. That was 12 years ago, probably. It was 10 or 12 years ago.
Hey, be easy, bro. Right?
but really, like, either of us, we're not up here 10 years ago.
Right.
There's people, Pastor Patrick is not leading the church he is 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There's a development that happens over time where you grow, where you have people encourage you and speak into you and do it together. Really, it's this idea that the better way is both immediate and ongoing.
I like that.
I think
that's kind of Jesus-esque right there. Find your life, lose your life. You know, there's a bit of paradox. I like that, Ocoee.
Yeah, that is the very idea. The immediate aspect is salvation.
Yes.
That is this idea that we love Jesus, we follow Jesus, our life is changed. Saul saw that in a moment.
Yep.
I saw it in a moment. I'm sure Spencer has his own moment where it's immediate, and then the ongoing thing is this idea that's going to take some time. Mm-hmm. It's going to take some development, it takes some growing to go to the best way, the way that God has for us. If we throw it back to Forrest, before Forrest Frank was Forrest Frank, I mean, that's his name, so he's always been Forrest Frank. But before he was that name as an artist, he was part of a duo called Surfaces. Mm-hmm. Surfaces has songs like Sunday Best and my son's favorite, Sheesh, just because they replaced the word sheesh over again. He loves it. So that band was a secular band with two Christian guys that did well. But Forrest tells this story where he was invited to play at a wedding. And he showed up at the wedding and says, hey, would you mind doing like 3 or 4 worship songs before you get into Surface? He said, yeah, sure. His grandfather actually like toured with Billy Graham. So he has this faith background, this faith understanding. He shows up. He says it's the first time that he felt like a vessel. The first time that he felt like his preference was being like sacrificed for worship. Wow. And that was the ongoing moment. That was the moment that kind of began to change where he was. Really, it's this collision moment where I could do all this, and I'm willing to sacrifice that for worship. Saul said, I know all the rules of the Jewish faith. I can do all these things, but I'm willing to sacrifice that to follow Jesus. That's the worship pivot. And we see this also, I mentioned the song Lemonade. Mm-hmm. So Lemonade is referenced by, it's written by Forrest, but also by a band, The Figs. The Figs are this little small indie band. An indie band with about 20,000 followers and monthly listeners. They had this series of videos where they would just make this is what it looks like to be this band. They did one before.
Like playfully making fun of them.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this is how simple it is to be Queen. This is how simple it is to be Forrest Frank. Yeah. The Forrest Frank one took off with like millions of views. Forrest sees it, loves it, collaborates with them, and in just a few days they write a song that debuts #1 on all platforms. Hits the Billboard Hot 100 week 1, increases the Figs followers on social media by 100,000 and their monthly listeners by over 2 million. Crazy. But here's what the point is. That what that song did for the Figs far exceeds what it did for Forrest. What if your greatest achievement is not what you do, but what somebody you speak into does? What if the Better Way story is not your story, but the few chapters, the few words you get to just speak into somebody else's story?
Andy Stanley says something like that. He says that your greatest accomplishment may not be something that you achieve, but someone that you raise.
Absolutely. Somebody that Saul raised was Timothy. Yeah. So Saul was so impacted by what Barnabas did in his life. They said, hey, I'm going to go find somebody else. He finds this young guy, Timothy. Timothy, somebody who is written very clearly, had a powerhouse grandmother.
Hey, wait, and don't bypass something important on Next Gen. He's a young adult.
Yeah,
young guy. He just found another guy. He found a young guy. Yeah. Very important.
Yeah, he's a super young guy who has a powerful grandmother, powerful mom. Yeah. Just showing him what it looks like to follow faith. Paul says, I'm going to speak into this guy. I'm going to encourage this guy, lift this guy up, give this guy some good deposits. In fact, we can read in one of the chapters that Paul is writing to Timothy, as Timothy starts a whole network of churches. Mm-hmm. This young guy starting multiple churches. One of the little moments in that letter is in 2 Timothy 1:14. And Paul says, guard the good deposit that was entrusted to you. Guard it to help the Holy Spirit who lives in us. A good deposit from his mother, from his grandmother. NXTGEN Sunday, man, you as mothers, as grandmothers, as dads, grandfathers, you guys have the ability to put good deposits in kids. But the ability to put good deposits in anyone, guard it because the better way is meant to be shared. A better way is meant to be shared. At the very end of the song, Forrest just kind of highlights what's happening in his own life. He says, Lord, I'm so thankful for the way that you bless me. Even on the darkest day, you're a lighter. There's this moment where it's just like, hey, there is a light that comes when we live the best way. And what would it look like if we were to share that? What better way story can you share?
What better way story can we share? You do have a better way story. And I'll reflect back to something Pastor Ocoee said, like it's immediate and ongoing. Some of you may not realize you're in it, but you are. Some of you may not realize that you've actually come through one and you have a story to tell, but you're somewhere in that journey of a better way story. And it in some way aligns with, reflects, or tells the better way story that is the ultimate, which is Jesus. Jesus is the better way story. When Jesus began his ministry, it was clear to anyone who heard, overheard, saw him, watched him behave, seen the things he said, or got to interact with him, that he was here to give us a better way. And it was direct. At first, he was talking to his own people, his fellow Jews that had a system, and he was going against it. He would say things, he would do the direct comparison. He would say things like, you've heard it said. You've heard it said that, yeah, love your friends. Oh, but you better hate your neighbor. You've heard it said that. What if we loved our enemies? We loved our neighbors, hated our enemies, but what if we actually loved our enemies too? No, we can't love our enemy. No, we got to go to war. No, what if you actually loved them? I'm telling you, it's a better way. He would say things like, you've heard it said, nah, eye for an eye. Have your vengeance and revengeance. Go, make the scales even. Be your own justice. You've heard it said that. What if you forgave people? Yeah, right. No. Hear me out. What if you forgave people? I'm telling you, it's a better way. And so Jesus comes and he lives this life. He's living the better way life, but it's just the beginning. The life that he lived was just the beginning. It would actually be the end of his life that would be the finishing of the good work that God was doing. Do you know that there's 10,000 to this day, there's 10,000 religions in this world? Now, there probably wasn't that many in Jesus' day, but there was more than enough that Jesus was probably just one of the options. Again, he was talking to his people that had a religious system that God actually helped design for them. It had a purpose, it had a time. But 10,000 ways that someone can say, here's my way to God. 10,000 ways. And I always like to say this about religion itself. I think religion's a beautiful idea. I think it's a humble idea. Basically, it's this. If there's a God, if there's a higher existence, some source that I came from, is there a way I can be on good terms with them? Or it? Or whatever? Could I get to know about them? How do I at least stay on their good side, right? How can I stay on the blessing side and not the cursing side? Or better yet, could I get to know them? Could I be their friend? That's religion, essentially. Is what do I do to make that happen? Religion itself is not a bad idea. It's a good idea. It just wasn't God's idea. He had a better way, and it was Jesus. But to fully give us the better way, Jesus had to take the worst way. See, I like what Forrest said. When I'm overwhelmed within from the weight of my sin, it was sin that estranged us from God to begin with. It was sin that broke our relationship with God and actually influences us to take ways in life that we think are the right way until they come crashing down. They lead to destruction, like that proverb says. There's a way that seems right to us, but leads to destruction. And when it comes to sin, sin follows us into our eternity to more destruction. God said, I got a better way. If my own son, Jesus, would be willing to swap places, instead of this religion of you trying to reach up to me, what if I came to you and gave you the better way? And if Jesus was willing to give up his life, we would have that better way. And this is why we call it the good news. It's because he was. He was more than willing. As a human, we even see that he was terrified to face it and yet still said he called it all joy to do it. And so when Jesus comes into this world, he doesn't only live for us, he intentionally submits his life over to the people that he would die for, to take his life. He dies a gruesome death, a horrible one that words can't describe, on a cross. And by doing so, we can now be forgiven of that sin. God says, I still have even yet a better way. Days later, God brings Jesus back from the dead. And by bringing Jesus back from the dead, not only now do we get to be forgiven, we now get to be restored to the God we've been estranged from, been trying to reach with religion all our life. We now have access to him. My question to my Chambersburg campus, to my online campuses, is the better way yours? God's way is better, but is it your way? Have you chosen the better way that is Jesus? Your opportunity is right now. Right now. The same way that somebody speaks into another person and says, I see this in you. God, I believe right now, is saying to someone, I see myself in you. And you need to receive that. And so listen, to receive that from Jesus, the forgiveness, the restoration to God, it just takes a yes from you with all your faith. Do you believe Jesus died for you, gave his life for you? Do you believe you're that important to him? Do you believe that as God raising him from the dead, that you now get to be restored to God? And if so, do you want it? Just say yes. And if you say yes to Jesus today, if you're making that decision, I want you to please let me know, okay? There's going to be a QR code on your screen. Scan it so that I can follow up with you. You've just begun the journey. It's immediate and ongoing. This is the immediate. The ongoing is there's a family from us to Forest Frank that is the church. And here in this local church, Lifehouse, we want to be your family and help you live out this journey, this transformation, this better way. We want to live that out with you. And so I will get to follow up with you, or your campus pastor will get to follow up with you in Chambersburg. I want to hit you guys online. Your Pastor Nelson, your campus pastor, are going to reach out to you if you made the decision. But we just want you to be a part of this family, because we don't walk out the better way alone, right? We share it. It's meant to be shared. And your journey starts now. And it truly is. It truly, truly is a better way.
Absolutely. And if that's you, because it's both immediate and ongoing, what I'm about to say applies to anyone making a decision right now, and anyone who's made the decision in the past. There's a few ways that I just want you to be really, really practical. How can you live this out today? The first is, it's the encouragement piece. Man, you have people in your life that you see things in and you've never told them.
Speak it. Come on.
Speak it, and speak it today, man. The song we're about to go into is really high energy. So like maybe don't right there in the song, but after the song, as you're hanging out, like do it today. Just speak it into them. Hey, I see this in you, but then be willing to walk it out with them. Yep. Be willing to say, I'm gonna do this journey with you. I'm gonna take you the whole way. Maybe it's serving. Man, like we see this happening in NXTGEN like week after week. If you want to be like really encouraged, like I'd say serve anywhere, make sure it's like a better way serving. Like, make sure you really feel it. Like maybe you are serving, maybe you've served on a big event and you just did it because you were filling a role. We don't want you to fill a role. We have this idea of like a sending culture where we want you serving exactly where you feel it. Where you're like, man, I'm a part of a better way story. Yes. What is that for you? Where in the church? I mean, there's so many areas. There's no excuse not to serve, because you can just, you're like, if you're interested in anything, you can probably serve in that area. Within youth though, within kids, like if you want to see this, the one person that's going to impact the world, man, like talk to myself, talk to anyone up in Chambersburg, shoot us a message. Man, like what's happening in kids and youth specifically when it comes to just like the better way story, one person changing lives, we're seeing this unfold. Yep. You can be a part of that. Giving is such an amazing example of sharing a better way. Sacrificing preference for worship. If you've never given, there's things you need to buy. We live in a world where like you need things, but there is an element of like, man, we can figure a budget a little bit and sacrifice a little preference to worship. Yep. Are you bold enough to say, I'm going to share this preference for worship? And if you're a family, if you have kids, if you have grandkids, man, do it with them. Show them what it looks like. There's this whole thing going on right now. It's called the silent giver, and it's this research project basically happening. or they're noticing Gen Z, Gen Alpha are less inclined to give to the church, in part because they haven't seen their parents do it. Digital giving is so popular, man. I digital give. I don't know if Spencer does, but like,
I do.
But like,
Digitally.
it's super convenient.
On my phone.
But if you just tell your kids, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing.
Yep.
You can change a generation. You can
Yep.
change not Lifehouse. You can change the church.
Yes.
To say, hey, this is what it looks like to give. Man, be diligent in generosity because I'm sacrificing preference for worship.
Yes.
There's a better way that can happen with my finances, whatever that amount is. And then groups. Man, I 101, absolutely. But man, if you're never connected to a group, we had group launch a few weeks ago. Man, there's power, and I want to do this with community.
Yep.
I'm gonna surround myself not with just one person, but a group of people and we're gonna do this together. We're gonna serve together. We're gonna challenge each other. We're gonna, when the world gets dark, we're gonna bring some light into the people that need some light.
Wow.
God, I'm just gonna go ahead. I wanna pray that you see God work in each and every one of these areas. God, I pray for every individual in this room that needs a better way story. Would you just become to bring light into dark places when they can't see the way? Would your way still be better? For anyone who's saying yes today to you for the first time, would they realize that it's both immediate, their life is changed, there's a better way, there's a light in them, but it's also ongoing. There's times it's going to be scary. There's times it's going to be unsure. Would they have the people alongside them that say, we're going to do this together? I pray for new people, joining new dream teams, new people giving in new ways, new people joining groups because the better way is meant to be shared. We're meant to sacrifice our preference for worship. And when we do that, one person begins to change the world. There begins to be movements in Chambersburg, online, anywhere this reaches, because when we sacrifice our preference, when we do it with other people, you begin to work in miraculous ways. When we begin to see that in the youngest person in the audience to the oldest person, would you just work in a better way story in every person's life? Would the greatest achievement of Lifehouse Church not be what Lifehouse Church does, but what the people in Lifehouse Church get to speak into other people? Yes. Amen.